Hi Deepa, are you connected?
Yes, yes.
I think we still have people to come in.
Okay.
Okay.
And
We have people
Chitra,
coming. Yeah.
can you be a little louder?
Yes, sure.
Yes, yeah.
Can you hear
Better.
me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Um, okay, so to everyone who's here on the live, welcome and thank you for joining. So before we begin, just a little bit about Mango Education. So we are an alternate school for fundamental and applied sciences, and we cater to kids between the age group of 5 and 15 years. So this live is specifically for the science fiction writing contest that we are hosting. Deepa, if for like a minute or two, if you can mute your microphone, would that be okay? Thank you. Yes. So this contest, so some of you who are here, I'm assuming that you've watched the previous live that we did for the science fiction writing contest. If you haven't, then I'd like to tell you that this is a two-part video. So once we're done with today's session, please go back and watch part one for a walkthrough of how to create a balance between science and fiction in your story. So as we mentioned in the previous video, there have been quite a few inventions in reality that were inspired by science fiction books and films. We spoke about the submarine being inspired by the Nautilus, which is an underwater vehicle that was mentioned in the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and the mobile phone, which was a result of the wireless phone, which was depicted in the Star Wars franchise. So, Science Fiction Fiesta 2020 can be your platform, your opportunity to bring something amazing into the world of science. It's also a really nice way to research a lot more about science and expand your knowledge base because for your story, a lot of things that you include in your story as part of science inventions or discoveries or facts will have to be researched upon. So so everyone who's registered, we hope that you're having fun writing the stories, and we're super pumped, and we can't wait to read all of your brilliant stories. So we have today we have a storyteller with us, who's Deepa, and she will be talking to us about the style of writing and the kind of language that you can use in your stories to make your story a little more appealing and engaging to the reader. So before that, let's just quickly go through the important dates, just a couple of rules to revisit. So the deadline for submission of your story is 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. So your story needs to be submitted before 11:59 p.m. Any entries that are submitted after that will not be taken into consideration. So please make sure that you stick to the deadline. Word limit, I'm sure you know, is 2,000 to 5,000 words. And please make sure that you stick to the word limit as well. And of course, the science fiction genre is what we're writing in the English language, no translations into other languages. If you wish to translate a story that's in a different language into English, then that's perfectly fine. And you can make use of graphics in the form of hand drawn pictures or doodles, and you can attach them with your story. But if you take images from the internet, those will not be accepted. No email attachments. Please submit your stories online on our website in PDF or Word document format. And the upload tutorial video is also available in the description of this particular live. So if you haven't watched it yet, then please do so. Any edits or changes that you want to make to your story, make those before the submission, because once your story is submitted, no changes will not be allowed or possible. Um, Last but not the least, winning stories will be published as a book, and you can read our previous year's winners' stories in the book League of Little Stars. The purchase link is available on our website as well as in the description of this live. We hope that we can announce the winners by August end. That's our tentative date, but depending on the number of entries that we receive, we will be telling you who has won. Okay, so we'll move to the main section of our life. So today we'll be interacting with Deepa, who is a storyteller and educator. So hi Deepa, and welcome to the live.
Hi, Chitra. Am I audible?
Yes, yes. clear
Okay.
and good. Um, okay, so it's exciting to have Deepa here, and she's a wonderful storyteller. She usually tells stories to kids, and she also is an avid reader. So discussing stories with her is a lot of fun. So today we'll be taking questions from the audience as well. But before that, I have some questions which are prepared for you to answer. So in the previous video, we spoke to Obli about the science aspect of things. We discussed about science fiction and how it's different from fantasy. So I was wondering if you could tell us about the basic elements that make any story interesting and how the narration or the narrative style of a story plays a critical role in making the story engaging.
Okay. So, first of all, I thought there is a basic difference between the plot and the narration, right? So, the plot is what your story is going to be about, and narration is how you take the story in the sense each scene and things like that, what is happening throughout the plot. The plot can be generalistic in this, there's going to be this person coming. And there is suppose a UFO coming in, for example, and then how they both interact. This could be just the entire plot of the story, but how you're going to take it will be the narration aspect of the story. So in the narration, some of the things that have generally grip the audience, or to make the audience not want to put the book down, are things like definitely humor. Humor is one thing that you can choose to employ in your narrative style, as to you could either have a specific character being the giving the humor aspect of it, or your entire story can have, your entire narrative style can bring in the humor aspect of it. Then obviously there is the suspense, which many of us go in for. Is So the suspense. If you see certain storytellers give suspense in a very different way, meaning the story entirely. There is some of them, like O. Henry is one of the authors who, the story is not very suspenseful, but suddenly at the end there is a complete twist. So he's famous for the twist in the ending, and it is completely unexpected. So what happens is the reader is left with that. Uh, the ending makes a lot of impact on the reader, and the story stays with the reader for a longer time. So building a suspense otherwise in the entire story will include a lot of the hush hush aspects in of when it comes to storytelling. Suspense building is much easier than story writing, because you use a lot of voice in the storytelling. When it comes to writing, it's very difficult not to reveal the suspense, because your mind is there, what is going to come. So revealing is, you have to stop yourself, and it's almost like a the puzzle. Putting together the puzzle becomes the challenge. How, or the end point. Creating a maze for the end point becomes the challenge. So how are you going to create the maze? What is going to be the suspense points, or things like that is going to be the challenge in that. One of the other things that I find very enticing when reading a storybook is how well the author knows the character. So, for example, I'll probably come to the character. The one other thing is the setting. How important is the setting to your plot? Does the setting, like for example, the this movie of M. Night Shyamalan, where was it, The Village or something, where the entire thing was about the farm having symbols created by possible extraterrestrial life forms. So if the setting is important for you in your story, then you need to begin describing the setting as well, so that the author is, I mean, the reader is able to visualize the story better. Or else, if your setting is focusing on the character, a lot about what is going on in the character, maybe how the character is looking at the world, then your description has to be more about the character, the personality of the character, and things like that. So especially in a short story, you need to take calls like this, because you have only so much time to tell your entire story with. So you have to decide what you have to give importance to. So for that, you need the clarity on what your plot is going to be. I mean, what the focus of your story is going to be. If the focus is on the other new planet, for example, or the entire thing is happening on a new planet, and the experiences of the person on the new planet, then there needs to be a lot more description about the planet and the person there, and not about the person traveling to the new planet. So you have to take calls like this when it comes to short story. Some of the other aspects I found is a compelling aspect. One is dialogues. What are the kind of dialogues that you have in your book? Um, Things like, yeah, can the character have certain dialogues that the character uses often? For example, the word "for example." If somebody were to make a character out of me, my dialogue will have a lot of "for example" in it. So using dialogue, so there are these two kinds of short stories. One is where the story is written, the entire plot is written in third person. Like how you read it, like once upon a time there was a princess who was walking down the road, and then she found somebody. So this is one descriptive style of writing. There is this other where you are involving the characters in talking. Like, for example, the character says, so the princess meets the frog and says, "Oh my god, I didn't know a frog could talk." That dialogue makes a better connection for the person with the character. I personally feel dialogues make a better read rather than just a short story. I mean, just a descriptive story in the passive tense. There are some of the other things when especially when it comes to writing of the story. Some of the things is, how do I know the emotions that are happening or happening in the story? Uh, when I'm saying, "Oh my God," that I'm surprised because you're looking at me, I'm expressing it. In writing, what happened? Or even there is my voice also expressing the emotion that I feel when I'm talking. But when in writing, how do you know? This is actually one of the uh, main reasons I find conversations over the phone on chat fail, because you don't know what the other person is intending to say. So there is a lot of importance in writing for punctuations, and also dialogue tags, while saying, "Oh my god," she exclaimed, or um, am I still online? Was there? Okay. So the other, Chitra? Chitra, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Chitra? You are muted.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, fine. So where was I? Yeah, we were talking of dialogues and punctuations, right? Yeah, so some of the tags in the dialogue, like she yelled, or she said smiled, or she whispered, and things like that will help the reader understand what emotion is going on. So dialogue is something that is important when you're looking at writing. Like I said, description of what is the focus of your story is another. You can use humor, suspense. These are some of the key aspects I find. One other thing in with respect to narration is who is telling the story. From whose point of view is the entire story happening? Is it happening from uh, one character's point of view, or is it happening from your third person point of view, as you as a narrator is telling the story, or is it happening from, that you have to decide, and you'll have to stick with throughout the story. So that decision has to be made before you start off writing a story.
Okay. Great. So, since you spoke about plot, just a quick side question. Do you think that outlining the story will actually help you write better, even if it's a
I
short
think
story?
so. I think so. See, like for example, when I tell a story to my son, it just starts off and I don't know where it goes. um, but when I am writing it down, I think it's very important to have an outline of a story, so that I know where my story is going to lead. Again, like I said, I only have so much time to tell what I have to tell. So outline of the story is like the first step that you have to do before you go into the narration. I would agree with that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so moving on. So I, since you said that you narrate stories to kids. So generally, I'm guessing you must use a lot of animation, like body language, and very simple language to convey your words. So, if you compare, let's say, if we compare storytelling and story writing, do you think in both cases it's important to become the main character of your story? Because, like you said, when you're telling a story, it's easier to convey certain emotions because you're speaking them out and you have a lot of expressions on your face. But when you're writing the story, do you think that getting into the shoes of the main character and seeing, feeling, and responding to things how the main character would if they were a real person, will that does that help you write your story better, and does it help you make the narration of the story better?
Absolutely. See, with respect to the character, I, as an author, I need to know my character well for various reasons. Um, One is to emote with the character. Can I do I know the character enough to understand the emotions of the character? What are the emotions that I'm going to for it? It may be difficult for me to get into the shoes of a character who is, say, 77 years old, because my experiences and that character's experiences are going to be vastly different. So I would say uh, a character which is younger than me, assuming that, so since I may have gone through those experiences, or a character of my age group. So I will relate a little more to the emotions of that character. So, because if the character's emotion is important in that story, right? So when say a 12-year-old child is looking at a spaceship, that you can give the character any emotion. If it is an adventurous child you have in your mind, or you could give it as, the child is extremely excited, Or if you are thinking of portraying the child as a very cautious child, then you have to think of the child as being, afraid maybe of this new thing. But it's important. So the thing is, it's the character does not appear just once. So throughout the story, there needs to be consistency in the character's emotion. So a cautious child will maybe look scared when he looks at an alien or something, and may not necessarily immediately go and shake hands with him or try to explore his place or whatever. So you need to be consistent with your character sketch. So if you can, ideally at the beginning, if you can give rough characteristics to your character, put some adjectives, think of some adjectives that your character will satisfy, and then you can, it will be much easier for you to do use it when you're writing. So you become the character yourself. Then the other thing is, especially with respect to characters, when it comes to dialogues, what are so different people have different ways of talking, and people relate to it. So I mean, somebody may be a very cut, precise person who talks, or talks in very short, crisp sentences. Whereas, or somebody may just be a kind of speaker. But so you need to maintain again that consistency in the character, in the dialogues that the character uses. So you can give a characteristic word usage, like I said, that for example word. These help you build the character better, give a more better relatability to the character. So they like look at you as another person, and your adventures through the story.
Right. Okay, great. So a lot of kids actually have been asking for suggestions on short stories, science fiction short stories. So, do you have any specific stories that you would recommend for them to read, not just of the science fiction genre, but any short story that you think can help them write better? Get an idea of structure or anything.
Uh, I would suggest R. K. Narayan Swami and Friends. The entire thing is, divided into short stories, and that's like, it's not just a fantastic read. The way he has described the emotions of the character is amazing. So that is one. Um, I don't know if I read Tagore's short stories around that age, but I think those Kabuliwala and all, they were some very powerful stories that, and Tagore has a very gentlemanly style of writing the story. So that those Rabindranath Tagore's short stories also I would recommend. Obviously, stories by Jules Verne, your 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or 80 Days sent around the Earth, in
Well,
80 days, world in 80 days, or the day in the life of an American journalist in 2008, 89. His stories are, I mean, those are typical science fiction ones, but great story. O. Henry is another writer that I would suggest, like um, The Gift of Maggie, the Cop and the Anthem kind of stories. And yeah, these are some people. Other than this, some of my, I'm sorry, but I can't resist saying some of my other favorite books, but these are not short stories. Um, Treasure Island, Coral Island, um, Robinson Crusoe. These are some must reads by everybody. The adventure spirit, and it's like fantastic. Those books are must reads.
also Lord of the Flies, if anyone's interested.
Lord of the Flies, is it?
Yeah, it's by
Okay.
William Golding. It's a wonderful book. And I think The Little Prince is also more for kids.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I think from my end, that's all of the questions that I had. So, if any questions are there from the audience, then we can probably take those in. And I think there are a few people who are new. So, just to update you, this is for a science fiction writing contest. So, if you're a little confused, it's probably because you're not aware of the contest. And if you don't know what to do, I'm sorry, the registrations are closed. But you can, yeah, so you won't be able to register anymore. But you can always join in next time, I guess. Um, and pictures aren't compulsory. Hand drawn images are not compulsory, but they're definitely a bonus if you can add them to your story. So, yes, that's about it. So, let's see if we have any questions from the audience. If not, then I think we can probably close the live.
You just there's just one more thing that I thought I'll add to the narration. Things like, to me, what is intelligent writing is when you consider, uh, how do you look at the audience as, you know, do you look at the audience as somebody who needs to be spelt out every single thing that is happening? Like, at the moral of the story, this is why it is said that you should not do this. Do you look at the audience like that, or do you look at the audience as people who can make sense out of the book on their own? So certain things um, need not be explicitly said. The man wears a dark black coat and he goes out into the night. You don't have to say so, because he wore the black coat and went out into the night, nobody was able to see him. That those are small things that make the reader feel uh, more he has certain things to figure out in the book. It's not everything is spoon fed to the reader. So that is another part of the narration that we can take care of, I thought.
That's actually a really nice point. Um, okay, so I think that's about it. I don't think we have more questions. So, everyone who's participating in the contest, thank you for your time and effort, and thank you for being here. And I think this is a really productive session. So thank you so much, Deepa, for your
Thank
insight.
you. Thank you very much. If there are
So
any
finally,
questions, will the kids be able to reach out to you?
yes, definitely. So you anyone who has questions, you can put it down in the comments, and we'll answer it as soon as we receive them. And you can also probably, drop us a mail or contact us at the number that's given on the website. We will be available. So, any queries or any doubts you have regarding the contest or regarding certain elements of the story writing, you can always get in touch with us. So yes, final reminder that June 30th, 11:59 p.m. is your deadline for submission. And I hope that you've gotten some insights on how to tell your story in a way that's gripping and also really enjoyable. If you have any further questions, type them out in the comments and we'll be happy to answer them. So awesome. Thank you so much, Deepa. We'll probably close the live here.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to read lots of stories.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.